Hey everybody, this is Mr. Longo, and in this video we are going to cover polynomial functions with their zeros. Now, zeros is another name for solutions or x-intercepts of a graph, and we are going to talk about different types of zeros and different things these zeros will do in the graph. So some of this is going to be new, and some of this is review of what we did last year. So, examples. Multiplicity for a zero. So, as I just mentioned, a zero is a solution or an x-intercept, but a multiplicity is how many times it happens. So, if you have something along the lines of x plus 5 quantity squared after you are in factored form, you know that that equals a negative 5. But if it's squared, instead of going through the graph, it's going to bounce off of that negative 5. If you have x minus 2 to the third power, so if it's an odd, or it could just be something like x minus 2, you're going to get x equals 2 and it will go through that graph. So many times back in the day when you were dealing with graphs and their solutions, you just found where the line crossed the x-axis. But now we're going to get into some more powerful stuff with x equals negative 5 twice, or x equals 2 3 times, depending on the function. Okay? Your real zeros are definitely your x-intercepts. That's when the graph will touch or cross the x-axis. But you can also have imaginary zeros. So we have done imaginary numbers in the past. That's when you're taking the square root of a negative number. So the square root of a negative 9 would be a positive or negative 3i if we are solving. On a graph, it means it will not touch the x-axis, okay? So what we are going to do in this video is first start with some examples that are in factored form, okay? So what we're going to do is list the degree of the polynomial. We're going to list the zeros with the multiplicity and the type, and we are also going to sketch the graph, okay? So, degree. We have 1x, we have another 1x, and now we have 2 more x's. So this would be a fourth degree. Now, something you need to remember from the previous video is a fourth degree polynomial will look something like a W. Now, I'm actually going to show you how to sketch this graph without using your graphing calculator, and it probably won't look exactly like it's supposed to. It's fine. We're just going for the general idea. Zeros. Your zeros, or solutions, all you have to do is what we did back in the day. So you would just set each one of these x's equal to 0 and solve. So if we had x plus 4 is equal to 0, one of our zeros would be a negative 4. If we were to set x minus 3 equals 0 and solve, we would add 3 to both sides and we would also have 3. And then if we set x squared x squared plus 4 equal to 0, you would have x squared equals a negative 4. And do not forget, when you are solving by square roots, this becomes x is equal to plus or minus 2i. Okay, so don't forget, when you are solving by square roots, there are two solutions. It is a plus or minus. So, if we were to sketch this graph, you would have a negative 4, and we would put a dot on it, and we would have a positive 3. And since it is positive, now we need to look at the multiplicity. This only happens once. 3 only happens once. And because these parentheses, the squared is not outside of the parentheses, it's just with the x squared, that is also multiplicity of 1. So this is going to slash through the negative 4, do a little dance down there maybe, and come back up and slash through the 3 because those are odd. Okay? And that's probably what this graph is going to look like if you were to type it in your graphing calculator. Again, that's not the purpose of this video. You can go type it in if you want. The purpose is to talk about what your zeros are and what their multiplicity is and what it would do in the graph. Okay? So this next one, the degree. You have 2 x's and 3 more x's. Remember, x plus 2 quantity squared. If you FOILed that out, it would be x squared plus 4x plus 4. Because remember, that's like saying x plus 2 times x plus 2. And this is like saying x minus 4 times x minus 4 times x minus 4. And then you would have to just FOIL all of that stuff. We're not here to do that. We're here to talk about the degree, the zeros, and what the graph would look like. So, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is a 5th degree. And it's negative. If you remember from the previous video, odd that are negative will start high and finish low. What it does is, I don't know, maybe it'll come down and it goes 1, 2, something like this guy. Okay? Something fancy. What we need to do is talk about what are the zeros. So we have an x plus 2 equals 0. So one of them is a negative 2 with a multiplicity of 2. That means it's going to be a bounce. And then we have an x minus 4, which means another one of our zeros is 4 with a multiplicity of 3, which means it's odd and it's going to slash through it. So graphically, we can go to a negative 2, and we are going to go to a 4, and we are going to slash through the 4, but bounce off the negative 2. So remember, it's 5th degree, it's negative, so we're going to start high. We are going to bounce off, and maybe it'll do a little dance like that, and finish low. Maybe it does a little dance above or below, but that's it. So notice it only touches the x-axis twice. Even though it technically has 5 solutions, it's got a negative 2, another negative 2, and then it's got 3 4s. On a graph, that's going to look the same. So that's how we know, based on multiplicity, what our solutions are and what the graph might look like. Okay? So, another thing that you're going to have to be able to do, and this goes back in time, is you're going to have to be able to factor and solve to state your zeros. This is most definitely Algebra 2 Trig Review. And what I'm going to have you do, just to see if you actually remember what's going on, is why don't you pause the video at this point and try these next 2 examples on your own. All you have to do is factor and solve. That's how you list your zeros. Okay? So pause the video, give it a try, click play when you're ready to see what happens. Giddy up! Okay, so when you have 4 terms, all of different exponents, what you want to try first is grouping. So to group, all we have to do is factor out our GCF of x squared, leaving us with x plus 3. Factor out our 4, leaving us with x plus 3. And then you put your GCFs together. You have x squared plus 4 and x plus 3. And that is your factored form. So now your zeros you would just solve. So x squared plus 4 is equal to 0. And x plus 3 equals 0. Remember, when you're solving, x squared is equal to a negative 4, so x is equal to plus or minus 2i after you square root, and a negative 3. So if you got those on that one, you are correct. And this example right here, you would factor out your GCF of x, leaving you with 4x squared minus 9. That can be factored by the difference of 2 squares. So, square root, we have 2x plus 3 and 2x minus 3. Solve each of those, and you will have x is equal to 0, -3 halves, and a +3 halves. And that is some review. That's it for this video. This is Longo and I'm out. See you, bye.